We are live, we're calling the meeting order right now. Here we go, that was the gavel.
Thank you. Vice Chair Sloop. Here. Chair Shoemaker.
Here.
Director Salvaggio.
Here.
Director Vidal.
Here.
Director Waggett.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. So our agenda is in your blue folder. It's on the right-hand side. I'm really quickly go over it, just so you know what to expect, and then we'll dive in. Does that sound good? Okay, so we're gonna start off with something we can do while we eat, and we're gonna play Board Operating Agreement Pictionary. So get ready. This is just intended to be a reminder of the ways that we work together. I was reminiscing the very first board retreat that we did when Kelly and I were elected. We didn't set goals, all we did was go over the board operating agreement. So I do feel like it's in a really great place, but it's also good for us to be reminded of it. And so we're going to do that by drawing. Then we're gonna have a presentation from staff, and they're gonna get us up to speed on some things that will inform our goal setting. Then we're gonna review our just most recent prior year goals. And we're gonna talk about if any of them need to be carried forward or continued, or if some of them are retired, or if we just have like, a little bit more work to do on them. Then we're gonna get into the meat of goal setting. We're gonna do some brainstorming and some thinking together about our goals for the year. And then we're gonna end with something I think we've tried a couple of times, but sometimes we run out of time, so we're gonna try really hard to make these timestamps. But we're gonna do an exercise on the word transparency.
Oh, yes.
So we're gonna talk about what does that word mean, and can we come up with a shared definition that all 5 of us agree to? And what we each mean when we think about transparency, and could we even get to the point where we have a shared statement that we share publicly about what transparency is and how we promote it. And then after that, we are going to save any parking lot items that come up that we need to push to the end. And then next steps going forward, Chair Shoemaker and Vice Chair Sloop will be taking the goal language or the goals that we come up with and formalizing them into goal language that we'll adopt at our meeting in August. So with that, let's get started with Board Operating Agreement Pictionary. So this is how, if you haven't played Pictionary in a while, and in my house, we don't play it because someone always ends up crying. It's not usually, but the goal is that you're gonna draw one of our board operating agreements out of this bowl. And then you're gonna go up to your whiteboard and you're gonna use one of these driverless markers. And you're gonna draw the board operating agreement that's on your slip of paper. Because you may not have them memorized, I'm guessing you do. You do have a copy of them on the right side of your blue folder. Not all of the agreements are in here, but this is our chance to revisit some of them that are particularly important for us to think about and the ways that we work together. Okay? And so the prize, I didn't think of a prize. Well, we'll see. We'll see how people do. If we have a clear winner, maybe I'll enter a prize. Okay? No, yeah. You can have it for chocolate. Okay, so I'm gonna go first, and so you guys can keep eating, and we can see how this game is played. So I'm gonna draw mine out of the bowl. Okay. Okay, so can someone set a timer for like 60 seconds?
That's pressure.
And I noticed that when you picked one, you had to keep that one, or could you replace it? You probably can replace it because it could come up by somebody else and they know it.
Yes, so you really are gonna have to just use your best creativity.
Yeah.
Okay, and so what you'll notice when you draw it is that the number of the item it matches the number that's on the handout. So if someone's getting close, you could give them like, within two numbers of it, or you could give a little hints if you need to, because I know that this is kind of tough. Okay. Okay, so, we ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can see your operating.
And you can use like limited letters and symbols, if you need to.
Do we call out if we want to guess? Or?
Yeah.
Okay, number 5, the board will act as ambassadors to schools.
Yes.
Yes.
Good job.
Wow.
Okay, so you're up next.
I'm reminded that I hate playing picture or something.
Check
I'm
on
like,
number
is it
5.
time to be a
You do.
genius? And I'm competitive, so
I have a job.
Oh,
But
okay.
let's read the full.
Oh, okay.
Let's read the full item.
Do you want me to read it or?
Yeah,
You want to read it? Okay. The board will act as ambassadors to the schools, the community, and the district. Notify the superintendent and school administration before visiting a school in the role of school board member.
And so if Megan hadn't been so quick, a key part of my drawing was going to be the telephone call.
Oh.
And so just a reminder that like often we're in schools to watch sports or like see our own kids. But if we're ever there in official capacity, we have to let the superintendent know before we go in the building in that official capacity. Okay, hold on.
Oh, when can I start? Now?
Set a timer for 60 seconds.
Number 14.
No. Oh, am I done?
Nope.
Oh, done.
Oh. Number 3.
No.
No.
Number 12. 16.
Yes.
Oh. Okay, can you read that one?
Yes.
I will direct public complaints to the district complaint process policy, remembering that the board is the last stop and not the first stop.
Well done.
Very well done. Any questions about that? I mean, that's good timing that this one was picked because it kind of came up today but again, it's this idea that, we're not single-handedly solving every problem that comes across our desk. And that we're gonna make sure that we keep the superintendent in the loop about, calls or emails that we receive.
I think part of this is just the not just transparency of things that happen, but transparency of purpose. The purpose of the board is not to micromanage the complaint process. We have neither the expertise nor the information to address many of these concerns ourselves, and nor should we. We need to underline it.
All right, your turn to go.
Oh, I get to go.
It's the reward for guessing correctly.
Oh,
We'll all
thank you for that.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. I know.
Was gonna count as fast as I can as one.
The jellyfish.
Wow.
Number 15.
Correct.
Oh my gosh.
Would you like to read it?
You can read that.
How we communicate directly with the superintendent when information is needed or a question arises. The superintendent will arrange a meeting with another staff member.
So that's me on the right.
I am the amorphous.
Okay, I lose more hair every year, so that's.
Not as much as I do.
And I think this one is important to remember. And this will come up when we're doing goals, and it's thinking about goals, because sometimes there may be something that you want more.
Okay, take a picture. So
No.
you can
But you
show your
want more-
children this is one of the adult artists.
Yes.
I just want to show them, this is what it does.
I'm nervous.
But there may be times that you want more information, or that you want to go deeper on an issue, but it doesn't have to be something that all 5 of us need to do in a meeting, because staff is always here to be, helpful to us, provide us that background. And so rather than thinking, okay, I need to wait and ask this question, I'm just gonna, try to set up that fireside chat or set up that time to chat more, and that we have that open line of communication. All right, Kelly, do you want to?
And I would just say, I want to get you to that staff person, it's just if they get the email from you, they'll come to me and say, why is a board member emailing me? Is this okay? Should I meet with them or not? Is this about something I've done or not done? People just get nervous, and we know who you are, but you also have these titles that.
Mine was good in a big font, but it was a big font.
Looking.
8.
Twenty.
It's okay, you can keep them.
Oh.
10.
No. I'm really bad at this. No, you're not.
No, you're.
These are very.
The bad is when we can't tell what those are.
Oh, 27. Oh, yeah, yay!
How do you get that?
Superintendent's expectations of the board to prepare for productive public meetings, timely engage the superintendent on all anticipated questions and discussion points.
Oh,
yeah.
I like the diet. Very nice.
I guess I need to grow my hair. Wear more dresses.
Oh my gosh. You're like Shyla, they told me to get extensions in their dresses. Is this appropriate? Oh, sorry, we're on. Okay, here we go.
Well, and just really quickly before you get started, I think, that, again, the context there is in that realm of no surprises. We will get farther together if, you know, if you have a question that requires some background. I did a very poor job of this today. I asked her a question about the number of schools that were active and on the historic register. What I should have done, should have asked that question beforehand, so you could be prepared with an answer. I didn't need an exact answer, but a good reminder that if something comes up that you anticipate asking, you know, let her know in advance, and so then everybody's more prepared, and ready to go.
And, you know, I think there's this balance of you want generative in the moment discussion, so I don't expect you to know everything that you're gonna wanna ask. If it's something that you absolutely need to make your most informed decision, you know, and you have wanted it, or otherwise you'd be abstaining or conflicted in being able to take a vote, that's where we would love to have it for you.
Ready?
Oh, different colors.
Morning. Sunrise.
11.
Oh, this is-
Yeah.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Let me put some glasses on.
Oh, cute.
I keep having longer hair.
And no blazers.
And you're.
Number 2,
No.
26.
Yes.
Ah.
Right.
Had someone said 20? Or not? Okay.
Are you viewing the system?
26.
So to increase transparency, like shine a light or something.
Oh,
And
that's-
set the board and superintendent up for success. Timely inform the superintendent of all critical information and issues.
Very
Well, that's good.
Very good.
It's.
All right, where to go on?
Oh, wait, I'm gonna get the camera out. since-
We're gonna start.
That's what we're doing, sorry.
Oh my gosh.
There we go.
Are you gonna ride like this on the moment?
No, that was, I guess we drew an animal yesterday, I guess, wow, it was just tears.
Oh.
Aw.
But apparently, 2 other people before me had just the same wrong answer, so it was like, why did people get the dragon fly?
Aw.
Yeah.
So like, I'm gonna need a way to send these directly to your children.
There used to be a
Not trusting that you're
prescription
gonna pass
therapy.
along.
Okay. All right.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
That's a good job.
It's more than a 6.
Yeah.
But,
Is that Dan?
Oh. Oh.
Oh.
Good one.
Oh, what is that one?
I saw it.
Oh, 3.
Good
Oh,
job.
that is good.
That is
good. Recognize the role of the chair to speak for and about the board to the press and public groups. Recognize the role of the chair to convene meetings, execute documents as appropriate, and develop the agenda with the vice chair and superintendent.
Very good.
you can take your case for a profile picture.
I might.
That is a good one.
Okay. Okay, we probably have time to do 2 more, so does anyone really want to draw? Okay, and then after this, we'll do one
I
more,
could have put a gavel.
and then we'll just have an open discussion about our operating agreements, okay?
Oh, cute.
Nice.
Oh. Oh. Baking cookies. Oh, 12. No, that's what I thought it was.
Yes.
Yay.
That's a key word, that's Dan.
Good one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. The chair must make cookies for every meeting.
It's something around, I'd like to do it so that I can not drunk.
We have another one, we have time for one more.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
Any comments about this?
Yeah, so just, a reminder, and it's, I think, one of the most thankless parts of being
Yes.
chair, and then you're nobody can attest. But when we get an email that's sent to all 5 of us, we can read it, file it, and the chair responds on
Yes.
behalf. And often, most often, it's a response that's saying, we received this, thank you very much. It's not speaking on behalf of all 5 of us, it's that recognition of receipt.
That's a pretty fire.
No torso, just arms.
Which is most fire. Change the rules, I'll tell you the number and you tell me the picture.
Yes. Now we go. Draw this now.
Or it's really unified.
Is it 4?
No.
Oh, cute. Number 5? Okay.
You're close.
Are those trees?
Oh, I think it was.
Oh, it's a 7.
4, 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
I knew it. Cheery, yes.
That's that arrow, that one for down.
So, when the board takes a position, the whole board supports it. I didn't
Oh,
want- I
that's
didn't want to
good.
draw an individual leader taking a position. The whole board takes a position.
We'll put our heads right next to each other.
Yeah.
But I just think that is such an important one, because we aren't always going to, it does not mean we have to be unanimous in every
Right.
decision. That's not-
Right.
That's not the same thing.
Mhm.
But when we make a decision, there's a recognition that this is the board's decision.
And I think the second part of that, refrain from revisiting a topic unless new information impacts the decision and needs full board's consideration. I know I've been around boards where, one member may have an issue that that's all they care about. And so they keep bringing it up over and over and over again, even though this isn't made. And so I think that, knowing that we all bring our own interests, that's great. But if something has been put to bed, then put to bed. So, and there's always time to talk to each other, talk to staff, to learn more. but not having it, it's not really something we've had to deal with, but just making sure that we know that that's, not how we operate. Are there any other operating agreements, on here that, I know we're revisiting this, we don't look at it every single meeting. Anything else that you particularly want to call out or, that is important to you to talk about? One thing I remember when we were initially working on this and we had some OSBA facilitation, was the inclusion of the, board expectations of the superintendent, but then also the superintendent expectations of the board. And so I think that those last 23 through 28 is, making sure that, and I think we all do this, but, that we are showing staff the respect and consideration due to highly professional employees in our district. And then just really making sure that we're working in partnership. And I love that we include that in our operating agreement to show the partnership that we have with the superintendent.
I just want to comment that I really appreciated the preparedness of this board in advance of meetings. Even at a level where sometimes Mike is going to really deep, and it's a little bit inspiring. And to that point, I want to apologize. In June, I misread your proposal. And then I felt like I wasted the board's time because I had misread it. And that's on me for not. If I had read it more, I might actually have reached out to you for a question, for clarification, and I didn't do that.
I don't know if I would have been able to because of the serial game.
But I just really appreciate you just have to commitment to that everyone on this board. And I think it's made for a really good discussion.
The last thing on this item, and I just put this in at the very end, but this is something that I think Louis and I put together, but it was actually the cheat sheet when Megan and Dan first came on. And it was just a reminder of like how we process through things at meetings. And so I just put on here as a reminder, or put this in here as a reminder, about the different items that we see on our agenda. So for example, a staff presentation, we don't actually have any action to take on business items. Just making sure that we're asking questions, during, so typically what happens is there'll be a staff report, and then there's time for questions, so you can ask the staff person those questions. Then we have a motion, and then it's after that motion, still obviously ask questions if you think of them, but that after the motion is really the time for your deliberation, or for you to talk about why you are or you aren't supporting the motion, some of the perspectives that you want to make sure are on the record about the item. And then after that, we would call the roll and vote. Typically, and this has been done, I think, for quite a while in the district, anyone can make a motion, but usually the vice chair will catch the eye of the chair and be like, are you ready for a motion? Make that first motion, and then deliberation can begin. Again, anyone can make a motion, but that's just the way that we've done it over time. Often the agenda item includes the motion, but if you feel like you need to adjust that, just making sure you have the I move language. And then let's see. Yeah, and then obviously deliberation and the chance to be able to share our perspectives then comes at that point prior to voting. And I think to Dan's point, that preparedness is so appreciated. And I have loved the chance to hear more, like just frank, like that discussion during the deliberation portion. And so I think I'm kind of hearing that. I think we're all in agreement that works really well for us.
So I made the comment today about that process, the board meeting, because it's just so counterintuitive for me, because it feels like a motion and a second is a promotion of something. as if we're saying, I'm already voting yes. That's why I'm making a motion, that's why I'm seconding the motion. But we have to do that as a gateway to actually have the discussion. For me, it feels like discussion first, but I understand if we're gonna have a process, and process is going to start with clarifying questions, followed by motion, followed by discussion. As long as we're all.
And again, I think you still can ask questions during the deliberation, but I always think of it as, you have a staff member standing up there or, sitting on the side they've just presented. And so they're prepared to answer questions about what they just presented. And then once we get those questions answered, then it's our time to talk about it. And so I think that's also just making good use of staff time, so they know when they have to chime in versus when we're just offering up our opinions. So the staff can be ready to say, oh, yes, let me clarify this portion of the memo or whatnot, so. Right, so again, I think, as we go on and we think about, how do we make meetings run most efficiently, let's keep adding to that. Same thing with our operating agreement, if there's things that we need to change or amend, but I don't think we need to spend an entire retreat on them, now that we've revisited, so let's just keep those in mind, keep them, in our folders or wherever, to just remind ourselves of how we work together.
I just want to comment that, we think we do run efficiently, and having that kind of robust discussion ordinarily intentionally with each other. And so it's the role of the chair to balance that tension typically. There are meeting formats where nobody is addressed except the chair, and that can be very, very regimented and make meetings go very, very efficiently, and you don't have any chance of something like 4B or you have a member of the committee talking to the staff directly. But then, of course, you don't get that back and forth that I enjoy and feel is enriching. So I just want to call out that it's not always going to be like on the we're always going to do efficient thing. It's I like that we're flexible in our process. I like that.
Yeah. And Dan and I had a really brief conversation about, could we put the rules of public comment up on the slide rather than having to read it every time? There's someone in the room that hasn't been there recently. So I think those are the types of efficiencies I think I would appreciate. And so I think as we identify those, that would be great. But yeah, absolutely not promoting efficiency and then doing away with the conversation.
Not to get in the weeds, but just about the rules of public comment. Some people take in information differently, so I think it's important though to read them out loud. Not all of them maybe,
Yeah, I
but
think
especially for new people, I just think people learn differently. So, so maybe both.
Yeah.
I think we'll have some
Yeah.
comment of one of the slides.
Yeah,
It's something that everyone, audience and speakers alike can see.
yeah,
Some bulleted items, as well as some introductory comments. I think between the two, we can gain some efficiency and also have some clarity.
okay.
Because there's some times where I didn't read the whole thing.
Yes.
It wasn't really relevant. Jeez.
All right, so we're gonna move on from how we work together to learning from staff.
Take this moment, you get 45 seconds, get up, stretch. A few more items on your lunch tray.
Oh, and I didn't build breaks in to the agenda, so please just take time when you read it, and we can take breaks as you feel on the time.
That's not what I want.
Evil Denver.
Oh,
my God.
You're
like, this is-
Yeah.
It looks so
No
scary.
way.
Every family has this week recording. Oh, the world.
Can you make a direct sequel to the Dead series, or what's going on?
Yes, I read that.
I couldn't see any connection to it.
Oh.
There's not a trailer.
I haven't watched any.
Well, the rights to the franchise.
Okay. So this is different than, the superintendent report at regular meetings. What I was asked to present is just information that could be useful in what you're gonna do today during your board retreat, which is have some goals. And what I did last year as well, at that time, you wanted much more information about budget, you wanted information about enrollment, school, you were anticipating the capital bond being, out for that, and so data I could give you and some context for what you wanted at that time. And today is about giving you some information that I anticipate could be helpful as you talk about your work together, and also let you know what we're gonna be working on, which came up during my evaluation. So, what I try and do when I think about the year, and our team does, is we try and make meaning out of what we're already thinking about. Metaphors can be very powerful, parables can be very powerful. And so, through some suggestion from a colleague, it was, hey, have you read this book that's out or seen the movie or the documentary? And it got me into the world of octopi or octopuses, which I'm learning is also. And just thinking about sometimes those creatures helps us think about our work. But not only that, we all were engulfed in a lot of viewership of the World Cup this summer, and we kept coming and just talking about parallels and how teams were forming and functioning and talking about belief and working together and the power of the team over the individual. There were so many metaphors that commentators were using, and excitement, enthusiasm, talent that's rallying together that got us thinking about how it tied in with our goal last year, which was moving forward together. And if you've been watching the Norwegian team, every time they win, they sit down and do their Viking row, which has also its metaphor about rowing together as a team. And so there's a lot of metaphors there, also with moving forward together. But it was when I watched the documentary, My Octopus Teacher, and you've seen that, put it on your to watch list. Then it kind of circled back to the movie and the book, Remarkably Bright Creatures, but even more so about just the fascination with our ecosystem and what we can learn just watching the sophisticated systems around us, or even creatures that can bring forward some thoughts and ideas. And then while the book and the movie have an octopus character in it, it's really about the power of relationships, about not isolating, but being part of community, some themes of trust. And I thought, boy, that's some good reminders for me about staying in hard conversations, staying present, and working on the power of relationships. So just for the fun today, just want us to think about maybe this creature, the octopus, and how it could symbolize our district, but maybe even you as a board. But we certainly have your own arm in things, and yet you're asked to kind of swim together, to crawl together, and to work together in a very sophisticated, calibrated way. As we were involved in our listening sessions with schools this year and with Urban Collaboratives report, some of these themes kept coming forward around what's our ability to adapt to something new, how do we build efficacy and resilience in times of change, How are we collaborating across systems, but also within systems? Where do we look for data to help us problem solve and do different things? How curious are we around, there was a phrase, healthy curiosity, that came up from staff around how we respond to feedback. You know, if you hear something, are you as a leader leaning in with a healthy curiosity and wanting to learn more? Octopuses have 3 hearts that help pump not only to their arms or tentacles, but also within the enormous part of their body. And so I just thought, if ever there's a work where you need even more heart than typical to not only keep the system going, but also to lean in with empathy and understanding, we can learn from that. They have no bones, of course, except they have a beak, a very sharp beak that they can pierce shells with. So they can slip into any small little crevice as long as their little beak can get through. And so that's where you find this idea of, you know, how do we not look at something like an obstacle, but we can get through that, you know? What are the constraints, but also, you know, not looking at it as limitations. And then this notion of adaptability, the ability for an octopus to camouflage is remarkable. So they can take on the coloring or markings of the seafloor. They also, and you'll see that in the documentary, which is why you have to watch it, can gather a whole bunch of items off the seafloor and collect them and then become a whole different creature. So they kind of stick all these shells around them and they can hide from other predators. So it's fascinating to think about this as a creature in our environment, but it's also, I go straight to making meaning out of something, the power of parable or metaphor in our work. And to that end, I got you each a stress octopus. So go ahead and take one, pass it around, and you can be, while I'm giving this presentation, feel free to enjoy your octopus. I have to give a disclaimer, and especially to you, Director Salvadors. I have heard on TikTok that some kids are putting them in microwaves. Do not do that. You can burn from the substance inside, or even leaving them in a hot car. So all of a sudden I got panicked that I'd given you all an octopus.
Oh, it smells so good.
So just go ahead and enjoy.
I won't put it in
Thank
my-
So here we are with Marcellus, you know, the octopus movie, but just this notion of, yes, we're moving forward together, but also there's so many components and systems, and how do we know where they begin and where they end? And, you know, either shoot through the water together, or even orchestrate as we crawl around very complex things that are happening around us. And thinking about the octopus as our mascot for this year. Our theme, as I mentioned before, is every student, every class, every day matters. And we'll be fleshing that out more with the organization. Typically, we launch our leadership retreat in early August. We'll be unpacking that with our administrators and leaders. I write a letter to the community, kind of explaining why we've selected this theme and what our work is going to be for the year, and helping focus on, you know, all things, but also kind of moving forward on some specific items. And really, you know, in brief, the notion of what does a student experience every day, a sense of belonging and safety, and also what happens in a classroom with a class. How do they have academic intention around the design of lessons, but also learning, growth, and success. And then every day matters. We want students to come to school every day. And how do we create opportunities? And that's where also our community gets involved, and our parents, and how do we help educate our community on that. So on the left side of your red folders, inside there you'll see the theme for the year and some brief first ponderings around how to unpack those notions that every student, every class, every day matters. So that's that. If that's helpful at all, just think about your goals or some entry points around ideas or curiosities or learnings that you would have as a board and how they might dovetail with the work you're doing. I will also add in that notion of every class, we are taking a look around at just design of class. We know that technology and AI is something that's on the mind of parents, teachers, students. So what is it that goes into the design of a class that is also student-centered, teacher-facing, but also there are also powerful ways that technology can differentiate and support and accelerate learning. In fact, there was a whole ed leadership journal around literacy in the age of AI and some real powerful ways that we can leverage technology instruction without compromising the absolutely important role of the teacher, the students, critical conversation, meaning-making, discourse, and social learning. So, the second thing I'm going to share with you briefly is some highlights of the report that we got from Urban Collaborative, then the themes from the listening session and our 3 days in June. So I just want to first say the report, as Urban Collaborative did quite extensive interviews and observations and data analysis. At one point they said, we think we can get you the report by August. And we said, that's too late. And then we said, can you get it to us by June 1st? You know, because we had these days in June in mind that we could leverage with staff. And so they did accelerate their work on it. But what we got was, I would say, kind of draft incomplete, but enough that we could then take and work with staff. So we don't have the complete report yet. And even as they were sharing with us, we were noticing, oh, those charts aren't fully labeled yet. And they said, yeah, we wanted you to see stuff, but we would go back and put the x-axis and the y-axis and maybe a little dangling typo here or there. But they were in a rush to really give us something. They actually flew out the day before we had that 3-day workshop to give us something to work with that they had already felt was substantive enough. So just want to make that disclaimer. And that once we get the completed report, we will post it on the website. And of course, you can have access to that. But staff had access to, those who came for those 3 days had access to the draft, introducing crosswalk. The format of the report was really giving context to who you are as a district, and then the sense of analyzing what was happening in the organization. Of course, if they spent a year with us, they would get really more details. So they were working a lot with self-reported information and some generalizations, but enough that they could identify and pull out some strengths and areas of growth, and those areas of growth became their recommendations, essentially. And then a lot of then some data analysis and some resources. And their goal, based on what we had contracted with them, was to do this analysis through their observations and recommendations so that we could continue moving in that direction on supporting all students. In setting the stage, and I apologize that one of the things I would recommend to them is to change their font a little bit, because their report is PowerPoint based. It's not a paper document that's spiral bound or anything. And so in order for readability and for us to use it with multiple groups, one of the things we are going to recommend is how the font they choose, and also they do a lot of grayscale bar graphs, which to me is not as effective. So those they were very open to feedback around that. So just to let you know, I didn't choose the font for the colors. So the first thing you want to say is let's just take a look at who you are as a district around disability rates. And this is something that we've advocated for funding. We've noted that this 11% cap does not reflect the national average, and it doesn't reflect the state average. And in Linn-Wilsonville, at the time when they took this data, where they got it from was 23-24 data, because they had those that completed report cards, so they were grabbing some things that they had access to. We were at 12%. I think we're maybe 13 now. So, and that fluctuates, as you know, with identifications and changing students. So recognizing that, you know, if we were way above the average, there might be a wonder like, are you over-identifying, or are you in a community that just does draw more students who identify? If you're really far under, are you not finding some students? But they felt that, you know, it was comparable to the growing trend of moving beyond 11%. Another key factor is, so now we have students who have identified a disability, individual education plan. How much time are they spending in the general education classroom, which is not only a national federal expectation to increase time in general education, but also the state of Oregon has an expectation that districts move towards that idea of 80% or more, and that if a student isn't 80% or more in the general education classroom, is it because there's something in the nature of the type of services they receive or something that's happening at that time that they're not in their peer-based classroom at the time. And so again, this is grayscale, it's hard to read, but that top bar is recognizing, so the light gray is national, and then the dark gray underneath is our district. So let's start with the bottom set of bars, and I'm glad Jennifer's here, because I get this wrong. This is where, again, you wanted them to label things better in the final reports, so it's not misunderstood by the community. That very bottom set of bars is saying that the percentage of students who are in the classroom 80% or more of the day. So that's where you want a larger group represented. And nationally, the number is about 67 of students with disabilities are in the classroom 80% or more of the day. And in our district, it's 93%. Okay. Then the second bar is students with disabilities spending 40 and 70, yeah, 40 and 79, so it's that. Okay, there may be some more reasons why a student may or may not be in the classroom at a greater portion of time. Again, nationally, you can see 16%, which for our district is 5%. And this is the trend we'd like to see it going, because we want to see students in the general education classroom more with their peers.
What's the middle bound?
Oh, so it's 5 and
40 to
6.
70.
Yeah. And then the very top pair of bars, and again, this is where labels would be helpful, is students spending less than 40% of the time in the classroom. I mean, the majority of the time they're not in the classroom with their peers. In our district, that's 1%. And nationally, that's at 13%. So just bringing some of this data for our community to see how do we compare, or what is it like to be in our district. And you'll get the full report, and we'll have opportunity to unpack this more. I'm just going to go a little quicker through some of them. And again, I didn't show you every single slide, because the intent today is not to dive into all 87 slides. They didn't have that many. But to bring a few forward is part of your board goal last year. You did want to know, but also in just sharing with you some of the things that came to our attention. And then we'll just fast forward. We got straight to what are the strengths that they saw in our district. The one they wanted to emphasize the most is they said, boy, you really have a deeply established culture of inclusivity, whether you talk to students, parents, staff, leaders, stakeholders, that sometimes it's hard. You could start on the other end with processes and try and build a belief, or you could start with, we have this belief and this value. The work of it is what we're always trying to get better at. And that's what we are as a district. You'll see that. So the belief is there everywhere from board, superintendent, nested throughout the system. How it gets actualized and coordinated, and we think about that octopus, how all arms working together, and is it really clear where we're how we're making decisions? That's the part we'll hear about later. There's a strong positive student belonging and pure culture when they talk to students about their belief, whether it's examples of unified sports or mentoring or clubs, or just how students could, name each other and not, I know there's a kid who it was, my friend Darren, for example, or something. Strong internal talent and professional commitment as they interviewed staff, including paraeducators and teachers, principals. They said, wow, you have a remarkably talented talent pool in your district, and if anything, they just want more information, and they want to know more on how to do it. A lot of existing models of effective practice that you actually, there isn't like this body of knowledge or something way out there. There's a lot of already exemplars in the district. Now you just need to bring those up and scale them and have the time and the focus to do that, which your postponement this morning of that social studies curriculum, I appreciate, because we can spend time this year getting people to go view other people's classrooms or share their strategy, and that can be some of the focus of our work too. And that there's a strong willingness to improve. There isn't a folding of arms and pushing away from the table and saying, you know, it's hard, so I don't want to do it. It's hard, and I wish we had more money to do it well, more people to do it well, but what are the factors that we can control, which is also who we have. We know we've got great talent, and are there some systems that we can now align together. Areas of growth, that while it's widely endorsed, there's opportunity for more clarity, working within the operation, developing understanding of systems. This is getting into, you know, what does it mean when something's on an IEP? Do people understand what universally designed instruction mean? Are people still getting trained all the time as they come into the organization? Do they really understand some of the nuances of special education? How do we keep people informed? And then how do we have operational clarity? And alongside that, the more we can work on that, we'll have even more coherence across the district. What does it mean to deliver specially designed instruction? Are we all doing things in a similar way? And that's that tension, because professionals also want to be recognized for their ability to make their own decisions in a classroom or have autonomy around the way they might do things with a class. And what we're hearing is that the district and staff is saying, we actually think we need to be doing things more similarly and consistently. Consistent was a very key word, the theme word that came up a lot in the listening session. And a willingness to now kind of give up some of that. Well, I've already done it. I've always done it this way. This is the way I want to keep doing it, to I think the whole department should do it this way. Or let's all use the same form, and not just one school come up with theirs and another school with theirs. Which moves towards aligning practices and also understanding how we share staff across buildings and how we make those kinds of decisions. And then noticing that there are some collaborative structures, but maybe what's working well with one department or school, they're seeing some differences across others. And again, it's not that people don't want to be operating all at the same level. It's just how do those things evolve at a particular school at a particular time. And then also just with resources, how do we keep up with some of these priorities? Are we making sure every paraeducator that's hired every time throughout the whole school year, somebody gets hired in February, are they getting the same onboarding as we maybe had time to do in August? Because all of a sudden the need is immediate, and in that classroom tomorrow, we just hired you. And so the feedback then is, yes, I want to get in there, but can I have that day of training? And so we've got to look at some of those collaborative structures. And then similarly with how we respond to students, to safety, to behavior. And this is a hard one because people have varying bandwidths around instruction or strategies. What might feel typical or safe to one person might be jarring to another person. When you held up that piece of meat, you said, "Is this spicy?" Because I'm really not good with spicy things. I might say, "Oh no, it's not at all," because I have a high tolerance for spice where I grew up, you know, and you might say, "I disagree."
Yes.
So these kinds of things come up all the time around definitions for, you know, was there enough support? Was there enough time? Did it feel safe enough? And so how do we have some objective criteria that we can all agree on and have some calibration, but then also know that in our system, we talk to one person and they'll have one opinion about what a student needs, and another person will say, no, actually, I think they can be more independent than that and don't need as much adult support. Let's give them a try. And it's not unlike how you make decisions in your own family, and you might agree or not, as a whole family around what's going to be successful, but you kind of, you know when things are on the, real extreme, but there are going to be these nuances. So we've got to keep working on that, and that's some of our big work. And then making sure that we're communicating consistently, and I think that was a theme for a lot of things, and some people feel like they have enough information, but some people aren't sure where to look for it, or they're working across two different schools. The high school might do it one way, the middle school does it another way, and then they're not sure which way they should do something. So out of those kinds of ways that we can improve, then they just generated those same 6 observations as recommendations. And so these aren't anything different, it's just taking those 6 and saying, now I think you can figure out, a way to operationalize some of that. And in their report, they have some more thoughts about that, but they've taken those and worked with them as recommendations. And then what we did is we took those 6 recommendations and we looked at the themes of the listening sessions, and we did a crosswalk, making sure. And actually, it was so dovetailed, because remember, their report actually included data from the listening sessions. So it shouldn't have been surprising, right? So they had all the data from the listening sessions, as well as their own interviews and observations and listening sessions. So it really wasn't hard to do that crosswalk, but we wanted to make sure our staff saw these recommendations. So it's just repeating those same areas and saying, so now we recommend that you further operationalize and you build in some capacity and you develop some systems to prioritize collaboration time and prioritize professional learning and build community. So they just kind of took that observation and turned the language into a doable verb that asks us to take a look at it. And we'll talk more with you about that. We just don't have all that time today. But you'll be hearing all year long about the priorities that we've made and how we are creating very clear action steps. In the report, they did do some data analysis. This is the part that feels very incomplete still for us because of the display of the data, and also there was internal data. We want them also to build comparable data. So you told us about us, but how does that fare compared to the county or other districts our size or other districts that are doing inclusive practices? I think we don't know unless we have some comparable data, so they're going to build that in for us now that they have some more time. Again, there's grayscale bar graphs, but this idea of how do we, this is just breaking down our disability rates. So there's a big category, there's disability, but then within that, you have like specific learning disability, other health impairment, autism spectrum, speech and language. So they've also dug down into that and given, we have the data, but they've just taken the time to bring it forward and look at how we compare as a district with nation and state. And some of it might just be, do we identify students who are in that area in our state of Oregon or in our district? And if something's really out of the ordinary or typical, we might want to ask ourselves why that is that we're under-identifying or over. They gave us information about graduation, which I think we tracked really well. And then students who spend more than 80% of the time in the classroom, how do they do with graduation and in those various disability categories? So now they can take different types of data, and they had that for us to give, so we could just kind of drill in and see if there's an area we wanted to target and have some more questions around it. Remember too that what happens is the N size can get small.
Yeah.
So if you have only 8 students in a group and one student moves or comes in, that changes a percentage pretty dramatically. And if there's 400 in a group and one student or 5. So when we do get to some of our focus groups or staff or categories, whether it's disability area or race, ethnicity, and the N size gets small, that's where Oregon just doesn't include that. They put an NA or they'll put it in because they don't believe you can statistically. Urban Collaborative tried try to make it into a percentage, which all of a sudden you're like, whoa, that's actually 3 students. But this is your own data, do with it how you will, but we feel like if it's gonna go out to the public, we should have the end documented. Again, they go down into the time in general education by level, like kindergarten, elementary, middle, high school, that kind of look at some preschool data. And to remember that it's not universal preschool, so it's a pretty selected group. We may just choose to not have that in the graph, but they will put it in there. And again, then by race, time in general education. And what we're looking for here is what we want to know from them is, did you find some disproportionate data that is not on our radar? And the state of Oregon does flag disproportionate data when it meets a threshold that they have set. And then they do alert you if you have disproportionate data. And right now, we are not on a watch list for any disproportionate data with the state of Oregon. Now, internally, we may want to have a different bar or threshold, let's say, but we want to work on that. Why is it that a certain student population, we know the N size is small, is not counted for ODE, but they count for us. We want to see what's happening for those 7 children. So we can kind of go in and do some more questioning and take a look at some of that data as well. But I just wanted to share with you that one of their recommendations is really look at your disproportionate data. And one of the areas that we have curiosity around is students who are language learners and have an IEP identification as a disability. And maybe is there also race or ethnicity in that? So is there something there that we should take a look at? They had data for us around absenteeism, looking at national trends, but then what does it mean for Oregon and for our district, all the time out of class, chronic absenteeism. So they had some data there for us. And our 2 students who have an IEP have more absences, which yes, they actually do. So we want to take a look at that. That's not untypical of other districts or state or national trends, but it's something that we may want to throw down on and say, should we have a goal around that? And then, but also time out of class suspension. And that's where also we're going to really look at disproportionate data. Is there a group of students that are receiving suspensions that disproportionately is reflective of a group that should be lower compared to larger categories, whether it's by race or language or ability disability. And then also this is interesting to us, and we want to do some more examining of this because this is data that also evolves. Language learners are identified, but once they learn a certain level of proficiency in English, they actually leave that group, and so it's actually more of a fluid group, but just around language learners and identification with disability in various communities. So you think that maybe there'd be a higher number in Wilsonville, and so when there's a higher number in Westland, it just, we just have some questions around that. So again, there were like 87 slides. It was incomplete. They have a lot more data they want to give us. I didn't want to go through all of that, but I just wanted to give you a flavor for how they organize their report, the idea of context around our district, compared nationally and statewide, areas of strength, areas to improve became their recommendations, and then this idea of how much data do you want us to cull for you and analyze. Are you getting it somewhere else? If not, they're happy to continue to do some data analysis. They are very interested in watching how we now put all this into action because we are one of the few districts in the nation that does this kind of work, has this kind of review, and then moves forward with action plans and doesn't just put this on a shelf. So they're curious for their own understanding and then using that to maybe, use this example across with other districts who might be interested. And so I think we'll be bringing it back from time to time as a way of some internal accountability as well to show them what we've been doing with the data. I will say that I'm just going to show you a little bit more, and then I'm going to ask Jennifer to provide some comments. This is some of our own data. So while they were doing this is some recent using 24-25 OSAS data. And so that's why it's in color graphs, because We like to put color in our bar graphs, but what you can see in, so this is around language arts, literacy assessment, and proficiency. There's a straightforward cut. So the blue bar on the far left, that's Oregon students with disabilities. And then the gray bar right next to it is Linn-Wilsonville students with disabilities. And then the yellow is total population of Oregon, and then the red is the total population of Linn-Wilsonville. So while we want to make growth and improve, comparatively, you can see how we fared compared to the state of Oregon, and we're not going to be satisfied with just that comparability. We also want to dig in and see what we can do for all the students to increase those bars. And there it is with math. Now just hold very lightly grade 11 high school because it's not required for graduation, state assessment. We do not have a 95 participation rate, which is why ODE does not use OSAS data for grade 11 with a lot of credibility. And students are very vocal about saying, we just went through it. So there are students who want, really to do well on it, and we try to put some incentives in, like looking for core and graduation. We are also a state that allows for opting out of state assessments, so that does impact the liability of data.
Do the other test rates test at 95%, or is it just the one grade? Participation.
I think our primary grades are the closer to 95. We get to middle school, it's still pretty high up there. We do have some data about participation, but across the state, 11th grade is pretty abysmal. Yeah, which is why it's just not used with credibility. Okay. And then there's one for science. So Jennifer, do you want to say anything about Urban Collaborative's report?
I just wanted to say a couple of things. One was back on the strengths part of it and the data. When they divided up and looked at all students with disabilities in the time in general education classroom, you can see we're doing more nationally. But where it really is so different is if you look specifically at students with intellectual disabilities. And you may have seen when that bar graph that had by disability type, it was one of the lowest at 67%. And the national average is 20%. So it's really truly very different. Whereas our approach around students with, say, specific learning disability, remember the federal category goes to 80% or more, so they may be still having out groups, sometimes interventions that might be very appropriate, but that is not as different when you go look at other districts or states or nationally. But it really is around our approach to students with more significant developmental delays that is so very, very different in our district. So I just wanted to bring that comparator so that we saw that. The other piece is that many of the things that came out as recommendations around more consistency, more operationalize things better to how we do this work, very much aligned with what we heard in the listening sessions. Okay? But what we found, and just the wisdom of Kathy, of our Student Services Director, Lauren Grigsby, that really pushed for this broader review of, yes, listening sessions are important and people's experiences matter. And also have to look at the data. And there were things that would have never come up in the listening sessions that we're really going to be paying a lot of attention to around both some strengths that we can continue to augment, but also some areas that weren't even on our radar of concern. Some of those attendance, some of those school discipline pieces, some of those identification pieces. So just a reminder to all of us as leaders, that we have to engage and listen with every stakeholder and value those experiences while always taking the time to look at the data as well and keep that holistic picture. So it was a good reminder to us, and it really then augmented and served well as Kathy's going to tell you a little bit about what we did with that. Having both of those pieces to then come work with staff in June really helped us.
And I think, this, when you do a listening session and you hear an experience, and maybe 12 people share an experience, it could be the same one student that everybody had an experience with. If it was secondary school, they came to my class, and they came to your class, and maybe not 12 students, but one student. So that's where data also helps to come alongside. The experience has its qualitative importance around what was happening in the classroom. But then what does it mean in terms of, are you changing the whole system for all the students? Or it's like, you know what, you gotta do something for that one student that's different. Or do some more educating around that student's experience. So those are things too, where we have to really make sure that we bring data to meetings, that we bring data to conversations, circles of support around this work as well. So what we did in those 3 days in June, and I was sending you some pictures of the group, we had 92 staff there that represented teaching staff, paraeducators, the principal of every school, learning specialists were part of that, other service staff who are support service providers, so that we really got a cross section. We had teachers who taught in dual classrooms, we had teachers who were language development, and so we had that shared expertise. As we heard, our staff, have the internal expertise, and then we assigned them in tables, kind of mixed roles, primary, middle, and high, so that it wasn't, all of us agree this is what's going on in middle school, but it was, this is happening in high school, middle school. So we think about alignment K-12 as well as how people experience the work. And the first day was just unpacking what we had so far from Urban Collaborative and assuring everybody in the room, we heard you, here's information to report, here's the recommendations, now let's work on setting some priorities going forward, because it can get very overwhelming very fast. How are we going to do all of this? Who's deciding? Where do we start? And you can get to a place of inertia where you just don't know where and how, unless there's a process and a way to begin filtering it. And we took each of those areas and teams in those groups worked on it. But just a recognition again that what went into that we had 21 staff listening sessions. So it wasn't just every school, but we also did 2 listening sessions with classified. The board chair and vice chair did a listening session. We did a listening session with principals. So there were multiple listening sessions and classroom observations, and then survey responses that we got back, direct emails, and multiple parent opportunities to also give feedback to Urban Collaborative, and any emails they wrote, Urban Collaborative took all those as well. So if people couldn't come in person, they had the opportunity to send something in writing. So taking Urban Collaborative's recommendations, and we knew that from the crosswalk that we were hitting the themes from the listening session. Staff then worked in groups. They took each recommendation, and each table group got to work on at least 2 or 3 of them. And out of that distill, what do we believe is working? What do we think this is about and the purpose of this? What's working well and already in place? What could be improvements? And kind of where could we start? So they kind of worked through that process. We took all of that information and further kind of tried to distill it, because again, you could look at all that and it feels like now you have an 87 slide along with another 87 slides. And so we've got it down to these 3 priorities. The first one really focused on every student matters, belonging and safety. And this is where when we were hearing about inclusion, around belonging, safety, those kinds of systems, That's gonna be embedded under priority number 1. And this acronym that I want you to become really familiar with is MTSS, Multi-Tiered Systems of Support. And in the research out there and in recommendations when districts are asked to do better around their systems, it's really, what do you have in support for the all, that everybody understands, what's in place for some, and what is it that's needed for a few. That's the tiers, and embedded in each. And the all is around that guaranteed viable curriculum. This is what all students are getting, and we're all gonna be trained in it, and we have to make sure everybody is in alignment. And then when we know that's in place, then the sum and the few really should be proportionally kids who are getting the all and still need more. If your all has gaps, you're gonna get more kids in the sum and the few because they didn't get it in the all. And you can talk about that across literacy or math or science or attendance processes and strategies or behavior systems. You know, what is it we expect from our classroom behaviors that we're going to teach all the kids how to do? So you really can take those multi-tiered systems of support and apply it across a number of areas, which is what we want to do. So this is just a shell that you're seeing, and behind this priority is right now a list of about 35 things we have planned to do. And the reason we're not sharing that is you could all of a sudden zone in on one, and we haven't fleshed out. We actually haven't even shared it with principals yet and with staff. So we're just starting to categorize all of those suggestions and say, is this one that fits in priority 1? Does this go into 2, 3, or is it across all? And how do we now get it to a way that it's clear, it's a doable action, and it doesn't feel overwhelming? So we built this in a way that we say a priority, what does it mean? It's big value statement there. What's our commitment as a district? And then that's sub underneath the commitment is where the 35 things are going to be, or whatever the number is. And then professional learning, we make sure that each of those, how are we attending professional learning? Some trainings for all, some and few, because it even can apply to staff. What do all staff need? What do some staff need? And then also data indicators of success. How will we know we're making a difference and we're making improvements in these areas? What data should we look at? Priority 2 is now let's really look at the class. What is happening in the classroom? Student walks in, they've shown up that day. What's the academic intention? What are the support systems for success? How are we looking at research-based instruction? Are we using our 5 dimensions of teaching and learning? What's the multi-tiered system of support for all, some, and few that's happening, whether you're going into French class or advanced calculus or, it's math time in the 2nd grade classroom. Professional learning to support that, data indicators of success. And then what does it mean for everyday matters? And we saw in our data, urban collaborative, that students on an IEP are not attending school at as higher rate as other students. But we can also look at some other areas. Our students who are maybe not doing well around behavior or belonging, also not attending every day. Is there a disconnect around a feeling of community and belonging? So what are our multi-tiered systems of support around that? And I always champion you, Vice Chair Vidal. I think you always say, I really want us to look at attendance. I really want us to look at attendance. Of course, we heard that from the governor around how many days of school. So it's the quantity at some point does matter. And that every class needs a quality matters. They're showing up, they're coming, what's happening in the classroom. And then a lot of communication. We heard that around our community about budget, around everything, but our staff want to know, how are we going to know what we're doing this year based on everything? So what's this open ongoing communication going to look like? Quarterly updates, there's things that we're going to do at the district level that we push out to our staff, kind of like you get briefs, or the community gets board briefs or bond bulletin. How does our internal staff also get these push out of communication? coffee talks that we're also going to do, regular feedback loops. We kind of like our panorama staff survey, but maybe there's a way we could take and have some more discrete questions that we want to know, so we're looking at generating our own surveys too. And then we're going to grab that group of 92 back together in the middle of the year and say, tell us what you're already seeing, hearing, what's working well. Is this what you were hoping for? You know, knowing that we can't get all of this done in 1 year, it's going to be multiple years. And then quarterly meetings, we have of that group of 92, we're actually have some smaller work groups that are going to work on some other aspects that did come up, that some Java-like groups need to attend to. They're going to take on kind of a leadership role and meet more frequently around some implementation ideas. And then how do we get some feedback back from staff. All this to say we want to document what led us to this place, what happens with Urban Collaborative in that report, the listening sessions, the action plans for these 3 priorities. So we have contracted with a person from the ESD who is just retired as a communication director, and is just going to focus on documenting that and getting it into an action plan for us, and spend some time doing that. So we will have an action plan to share with you, but now you kind of know what to anticipate. You know, we're on it. We're involving staff very deeply, and it'll have this sense of some doable priorities. If you get too many, you kind of get lost in too many, because remember, people are also implementing science curriculum and health curriculum. But this really is about not imploding or starting over, but taking what's working well and refining it, calibrating it, doing more training, but in some cases also creating some systems or forms or processes that maybe 2 buildings were doing, but everybody was kind of doing something different, and we're kind of maybe finding the ones that seem to meet the overall needs and integrating those across the district. So when I come back to that idea of that octopus, if it could have 15 arms, it might represent our schools, or 5 arms as a board, you know, and actually there's a brain in every one of those arms. So the octopus actually has 9 brains. It's the major brain, but then each arm can actually do its own sense-making, tasting, smelling, kind of thinking. But the beauty of it is when it's all working together, and you're not stretching each other apart, but there is this synchronicity. And so a word for us is systems, which we are a highly complex, sophisticated system, not unlike something, you know, a creature in our environment, that when working together is incredibly powerful, elegant, effective, and successful. And so we have that inspiration ahead of us. We have all the right people at the table now, you know, and a lot of talent internally. And so how we make time for people to share their talent, room for those conversations, feedback on those systems, and again, I can't appreciate you enough pausing that curriculum renewal process so this can be our work this year. We are just so super excited. Some people are afraid of hearing feedback. I think as an organization, we've just come to a place where we want to hear it, as long as we also have to regulate your emotions around that, because it can get a little discouraged at times or frustrating. Because we actually have that document, nobody's using it, you know. But then that's on us about why aren't they, you know. So I think, you know, while we work through hearing a lot of feedback, to now be on this side of let's do something with it is so motivating and exciting. So I want to thank you for creating that goal as well last year, for trusting us and supporting us through this process. And whether it comes up for you and you do some goals around a part 2 or not, we just want you to know that we have a lot in place, and what your role in that, you know, maybe more kind of, they're on a roll, let's kind of stand back and support and learn along the way, or even whether it's about creating a resolution that affirms your belief and your support for these practices, so we can talk about them. That is the end of my report. I'm sorry I went over time.
Well,
It was very
great.
exciting.
It was great,
Yeah.
yes. We are gonna do an activity to just get out of our a little bit, because I think the post lunch, doing our octopus. But what we're gonna do now is we're gonna do a quick look back at our health goals, and then make sure we're all on the same page with where we are with those goals. So if you open up your yellow envelope, you're gonna see that you have some little strips of paper. And so what we're gonna do is, shall I use it?
Yes, Lucy.
Oh, sorry.
It's the extra one, it's like, oh,
So, So what we're
One of them
gonna
will-
do is we're gonna take our goals from this year. And you have a chance, you're gonna reflect on each one, and then you're gonna assign a status to it based on where you think it is. And so the four different status options are, you can just mark it as complete, like we've finished this goal, work is done. You can retire it and just say, you know what, like, this is in the past, we don't need to worry about this. Retire and complete are kind of the same. There could be some differences. Continue means it is a goal that you'd like to see move forward into our next year of goals. And then reframe means that you want to see this topic potentially considered, but the goal language will look different. Okay. So I'm going to put the goals up here, and then sign your name, put your initials next to the status that you're going to give to each one. And then you're going to come up here and you're going to tape it under the goal item. So remember, our first goal for this year was we were going to pass the capital bond. The second was we were going to examine our inclusion model. The fourth one was looking at the data, looking at student achievement data, and doing deeper dives into that. And then our fourth goal was strategic planning for our school facilities. And then our last goal was looking at our board seats and the potential of district. So just take 2 minutes and think about these goals, and then take your little status item and come on up here and keep it to put some paper on the board, keep it where it belongs in the line, and then we'll have a quick discussion to make sure we're on the same page with where goals are.
No bathroom breaks. I'm not a teacher.
I know. We're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it.
And I think they're from 3 retirement parties ago.
Okay.
I just left over.
Okay, got one more.
The ginger.
You're welcome. You're welcome. There's a towel to try. If it's
Problem is, pause. They're too much.
Okay, so why don't we come up and just state, just so we can talk a little bit, let's stand and just do kind of a quick overview of what we're looking at here. So we're looking at capital bond. We have 3 complete, 2 saying reframe. So Megan and Dan, why don't you share a little bit more about what you're thinking in terms of reframe?
I like the second half of that goal, the budget process and budget committee engagement will start earlier in the school year. I think that is the part that we should take from that and bring forward. I think we should start it earlier. I'm very worried about budget for this year, again, given like state funding. I'm not convinced that we're out of the woods. So that's where I was with that.
Yeah, I felt the same way. And also, I think it's worth affirming that that's continues to be a huge board concern. We're going to be successful.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do, this doesn't mean it's better than the others, but I'm gonna move some things that we're gonna continue in our next discussion about goals going forward. I'm gonna move the items that have some of that interest here. We may resolve some of these where folks are talking about reframing or things that need to continue, but that's kind of how we'll kind of move things back and forth. Look like there's pretty a lot of agreement, well, total agreement here to reframe the inclusion model goal. So if you're okay with it, I'm gonna move that over and then we'll start to think about what that might look like. Agreement here that this is complete. Knowing that I think we're all at some point going to be expressing an interest in continuing to monitor and have updates on student achievement data. But feeling good that we're all, everything's complete, okay?
Because that's not gonna stop, it's just.
Right.
I don't even remember marking that continuing.
I just marked it continue because I want those like updates that you provide us.
So
yeah.
legislatively now with Senate Bill 141, we have to complete the board 3 times
Oh,
a year. And
yes.
we have to be doing academic reports. So
Oh.
I think in the past, you didn't have to, you asked for them, and now that we have to, we may.
And we can have continuing discussions about.
Yeah.
For those.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Here we have, Mike wants to reframe, and this was the strategic planning for school facilities. Yeah, let us know more.
I could have put the reframe there or there, because, to me, that was like, we've got more information on, or I should say, updated information on what our changing protections mean and what our needs are gonna look like over the next, 2, 5, 10 years. And I was like, I could put it under this budget process one, or I could put it under there, and if it simplifies things, I can just switch my complete and reframe. And
Or what if we mush that in with that?
Yeah.
Because we're thinking about continuing to monitor our budget and then also our enrollment data. Does that seem to make sense?
And I'll just say, this request to start the budget process earlier in 25, 26 was more doable because we were in the second year of the biennium, so we knew what our funding rate was. We had no idea. So how to tell you in November that we
Just
know
like crystal ball. Yeah.
what we're, you're used to that, remember that next column where you say, here's the next column. We don't have that next column. So I think this is fine putting it here, but just remember that when you frame the goal, that staff will only be able to do so much with it. But maybe it's around what the board wants to do in terms of advocacy.
Yes.
And then here, I think we all want to see this one through. I think continue is an expression of that. I don't know if it means that it has to be on our goal list, given that it sounds like it's going to be on our agenda coming up.
Maybe
It's on
August.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
And I think, I don't know timeline as well as some others do, but in terms of vacancy of seats in campaigning, there has to, this is going to be something we decide, the public needs to know. And so there's a time constraint to this. It's
There
not a
is.
year-long goal.
Well,
Right.
just from my personal perspective, like, there's always gonna be an election coming up. So I don't feel the need to rush it before any particular election. When it's done, in my mind,
Okay.
and not before it's done.
well, we have our next discussion here. We're going to have limited slots on like what rises to a goal. Do we feel okay keeping it moving forward, but not necessarily elevating it up to that goal level as we look into this next year? Or where do we want to put this?
Maybe we could leave off the wall suggestion. On the road schools, the chair may plan to have on committee to continue with that report back to the later.
I think we're close. I don't want to make it a year-long goal. There's other things.
I'm gonna put it over here because it's gonna be something, there'll be an option to figure out where we categorize it in our next exercise, okay? So we're leaving this behind and we're going to, think differently about how we get achievement data. And then we're gonna keep these concepts of budget and enrollment data and engagement, thinking about our inclusion model, how we implement urban collaborative report, and then we're gonna think about where this lives in our calendar to do. We feel good about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So now for the fun part. Now we get to get our sticky notes out.
Yes.
Okay, so this is gonna be similar to what we've done in prior years. I want everyone to grab a Sharpie and a stack of sticky notes.
Do you want this side?
Oh, yeah, that would be great. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start thinking about the year ahead.
I'm using purple, and I'll use pink.
Oh, you're using
No, I'll use pink.
No, I'll use.
It's okay, no, don't worry about it, I'll just check switch. Everybody needs to
And I'm gonna, I am going to put on some spa music for us. Spa.
I think it's a cop.
Just trumpets, yeah.
Do you remember No Doubt and Say Ferris? No, I'm kidding.
So you got about 10 minutes, and I want you to jot down the items that you're interested in advancing into the next year. And here's the catch.
Excluding those, is what you're saying?
Well, so here's the catch. I'm gonna be putting some categories up on these boards. And when it comes time for you to share the items that you're interested in pursuing, you're gonna be putting them into one of 4 columns. Okay, the first is gonna be goal. board goal. The second is going to be work session. So this would be something that the full board is interested in learning more about. But it's more about learning rather than like taking action. But it also is signaling to our community that this is something that we want to have a discussion about in a work session. One of them is fireside chat. So something that you think that you would like to dig in deeper on this year, but may not rise to the level of a work session or a goal. And then the last is a superintendent's report. So something that you want Kathy to report on monthly, to keep it in the news, to keep it in front of us. What we're gonna do once we put them up there is we're gonna see, if we have a lot of people that are all saying the same fireside chat, we're gonna move that over to a work session. If we're all saying that we wanna look at or talk about something in a work session, maybe there is an outcome that needs it to be a goal. So think about it with that in mind and where you're gonna put it, and I'll put this up on the board for you.
Well, that's because I don't need to write it down. I just know I'm gonna say one word or two words. I don't need to like be verbose. That's you. Yeah.
The meeting to course.
And I guess I would say a fireside chat doesn't always have to be in my office. It could be, let's go to a school or a location and have the chat there so to see something in action. We've had that kind of loose definition of the location of that learning opportunity. Swim to the ocean. There's an opportunity.
Oh my gosh. Cute.
You look at it. Now you said it, no, I'm curious.
Oh,
Okay.
you gotta slow down.
I know.
Poor thing.
Well, you would sway with Superman.
Oh, okay. Like, hi.
slowing down. You don't have to put your pen down, put your hands up, but maybe just start, letting me know that you're wrapping up. Maybe the discussion. Yeah. Just throw it on there. All right, are we feeling like we're getting close? We have a minute or two? Kelly, you going okay? Yeah. All right, so Megan's hot to trot.
Not really.
Why don't you get us started? And so this
Alrighty.
is the time, so, share what you're interested in and, the quadrant it goes in. You don't have to give a lengthy discussion.
Okay.
But yeah, let us know, and then what will happen is we'll take some turns going up here, and I want you to, as best we can, cluster like goals together, so we can also see kind of a heat map of where I'm saying. So go for it.
Okay, my first board goal is advocacy for school funding at the state level. I feel like if we make this a board goal, we could get everyone involved, everyone being all of us, and make a real program out of it, I think. And it's gonna be a very important year, so, and this would pair well with the budget, the other half of the budget goal that we just discussed. A fireside chat could be Medicaid billing, how we bill for services in our schools, the probability that we get reimbursed back, the probability that pediatric, I'm just gonna add my own little take, pediatric services will get funding for this year from federal and state government. Just something to think about. We need to discuss that in this meeting. I want to preface this for Dr. Linn-Wilsonville, which I'm sure you know, but I feel like the longer I'm on the board, the more my topics are things I'm worried about rather than things I want to learn about. So it's like, what am I really worried about? What do I want to talk about? So one of those fireside chats is like teacher hiring and recruitment, especially in like the cabinet interviews. I thought that was an interesting topic. And it's like a worry, how do we keep these people that are extraordinary? And then board goal, we already talked about this, but I'm just gonna put it again, budget monitoring. What I mean by that is what we already had, that language we already had. Oh, something I would love to dive deeper on is during the presentation today, you brought up all those special education categories. I didn't even know there were all those special education categories, so I'd love to know, I'm such a dork, but like the definitions for each, what like diagnoses are under each, and then a board goal surrounding absenteeism. I think it would be nice and interesting to kind of like mirror maybe like the governor's educational priority. That's what I'm thinking here with the absenteeism. I don't know what this means. Like, I don't know what that goal would be around absenteeism, but like a study of it, or I don't know. Strategies different schools are using to improve absenteeism. Like, for instance, I mentioned this during the year, but like what they do in middle school is fantastic, and like what are they doing at the other grades too? So that's it.
All right, who wants to go next? Mike, you wanna go? Wanna go around the horn?
Good start, Dave.
Oh, thank you.
And again, if someone puts something up and you have it too, put yours up if you wanna see where we have some overlap.
I think you might have moved absenteeism or.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, sure.
That way, money stuff won't have some room to.
Yes. Excellent.
All right, so I'm just gonna put on board goals, transparency plan. I think we need one. I know that Andrew's been doing some really good work on that, but, I think that the board really has to take a more active role in rethinking and executing, well, maybe not executing, but rethinking the strategy, around that. I'd like to, I have special ed advisory committee. I do think that we should have one that reports to the board. I think there's a lot of community desire to have that outlet, and to have that direct line. Having said that, I don't know if it rises to the board goal, because I know there's a lot of work to do around that, specifically around that requires a lot of discussion around how do we set that up as a, sub-public entity that has reporting requirements and whatnot. So I think maybe we need to have a discussion about what that looks like moving forward. I had behavioral support plans, but that's, so it's already underway with the collaborative stuff. So I'm just going to put that on superintendent report. Improve local government relationships. This is one that I had from last year. I'm going to put that on the board goal because I know that the city, the West End at least, is a little salty because I'm understanding that the police chief found out about the VSD lease like happenstance, like nobody told him, nobody told the city manager. So I think we've got some work to do on that. Expanding tools for public involvement. Look at that under work session, because I think that there's some research and best practices to examine there. And then in terms of student data privacy, how to protect student data from a lot of emerging data collection. Yes, I'm going to put under there. Okay, that's all.
Okay, around the horn.
Oh, you matched it to your shirt too.
What's that? I'm gonna put budget and the board's role here, because that's an aspect of the budget thing I'd like to sort of emphasize. And then my other one that in the board goal area is a new one, educational technology. But maybe this is better as just a learning year for that, and if it is, then it's gonna end up down here. But this is one of the topics that is nationally huge and locally simmering, and there's a lot of talk about it. And from AI to screen time to efficacy, there's just a lot there. So it's possible that this, maybe I should put it here. It's possible that this is a year for us to learn a lot more about it rather than have a group more goal around it. I mean, obviously, there are some notable districts like Ellen Unified that came in with a hardcore 30 minutes a day after grade 3, before grade 3, 0 minutes a day of screen time, that kind of thing. So I'm not looking to have more goal that then says so that we can do this, right? I want to keep transparent, I guess I'll put it here too, this transparency. We have a district goal around transparency, right? So I don't know if it's too much duplication of us have a board goal. But I think our talking about it says that we care about it. So I like it being discussed in part of my, I like what, Mike, am I quoting you right? You used the expression radical transparency one time.
Yeah.
I think you did. I like that idea, because what we're telling the community is, we're gonna look for ways to be transparent. So, I just want to continue that thinking, whether or not this is exactly where it belongs. And then, we have a goal around inclusion, and I'm wondering, I wrote understanding NTSS around safety and classroom behavior support. I'm not sure where exactly that belongs. Put it here in the event that we continue that goal and this becomes part of
I'm sorry, what was the acronym?
it. The NTSS.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Hold it here.
All right, good job.
So ways to increase trust and transparency, or more or less restore for the community. Session. Understanding more about the Medicaid billing, but I also realize that this year there's a heavy lift on our staff, so we need to just fire some chat. More proactive communication and engagement with the stakeholders. Whatever. But that's also from the board. Legislative advocacy with the funding coming up and the unknowns. I think as a board, there's different avenues that we could consider, like PERS, involving our local legislatures, by inviting them into our district for tours, emails to them, local town halls, and then coming up with a unified message. Artificial intelligence and technology policy for like K2, maybe it's a work session. And then it was mentioned by the staff about during the cabinet interviews, the teacher hiring and retention. There's a chat. The budget aligned with the priorities from the community, and some of my questions is revamping the community survey where it would be open-ended, or say, here's some cost-saving measures, which are, 1 to 10 is more important. Send it out earlier because we don't really know what the funding is going to look like, and then that way it's the budget committee and the board's involvement. Those decisions can be kind of in alignment with what those priorities or feedback is coming from the community. That's where I'll put it in the middle here, one of those two. And then the inclusion model, just leaning more off the urban collaborative report, involving other stakeholders like the parents and the community, possibly an advisory committee that would also address the behavior as well as the type. And right here, between the two of them.
So I think this is similar to what others have said, but the superintendent report, I have loved how in recent years, Dr. Ludwig has had kind of standing topics that are in every superintendent report. And so I would love to see that include enrollment, budget, capital bond milestones, and then SB 141 requirements when it's available. And I think just having that steady drumbeat of like, here's where we are, really tells a story about the importance of it to all of us. I also put legislative advocacy as a board goal. up in this corner. I also put ed tech, AI in classrooms, and I'm down with coming up with a policy if we think we know what we want. But at a minimum, I would love to have an ed tech AI listening session with students and teachers. And so I'm gonna put it like overlapping with Dan's here a little bit. And then, I do think it's time for us to get back into having joint work sessions with the city councils, maybe the county council. Wilsonville reached out and they would like our help in explaining urban renewal because of what they're running into. I think we need to have a frank talk directly with Westland about their growth projections, because I don't think they're growing as fast as sometimes some of their counselors are telling people. So I would like to have a joint work session with both, and I'd like to do it on our turf. And then I would like to see goal language supporting the implementation of the urban collaborative report, with updates and milestones shared. But I feel like at this point, based on what I know so far, but correct me if I'm wrong, that's not a board level goal, but it's something I want us informed about at like key points throughout the year. Those are mine. Okay, let me just do a little bit of clustering. And then if anyone has anything else that they thought of, go ahead and jot it down, and then we'll start talking about.
What if I agree with, are we gonna vote on these?
Well, what we're gonna do is we're gonna discuss. We're gonna discuss all of it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so.
Because I meant to do ed tech and I agreed with transparency. So I'll just wait till we talk. And
Okay.
Yes,
I know.
yes, I meant to do ed tech. I'm like, come on, brain. My brain's like rapid fire. I know it is, but I meant to do it. But I meant to do it. I know exactly what. Oh, damn, I have to tell you something. Rowan called Toy Story 5 propaganda.
Oh, really?
Because it's against technology.
I haven't seen it.
It's so good. It's excellent. Well, I thought it was.
I heard
I know.
it's fine, it's fine.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm sure. He's a middle schooler, people that are listening. Yes, yes. I just thought it was fun.
That's us.
Propaganda.
Thanks.
For the record, most Pixar films are probably.
Okay,
Incredible
so-
Secrets of the Alice Trump, right?
I'm gonna be a little bit bold, and I'm gonna, you're ready? I am. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna work on getting things into agreed upon quadrants.
Oh.
And then after that, in each quadrant, we're gonna go through and fine tune, similar things, okay? So I'm gonna be a little bit bold in where I see similar themes, but they're in different quadrants. I'm gonna, call out the potential to move things, okay?
Oh.
So the first thing is, I see public involvement and transparency down here in work sessions. And then I see transparency up here as board goals. The one thing I'm gonna share is that ideally we're gonna come out of today with a shared definition of transparency and a shared commitment that we would be communicating about what transparency means to us as a board. So I don't know if we wanna keep it here and that's one of the outputs from today, but it's not expressed as a goal, it's expressed as like our commitment. Or if we want to move it down here and have a full-blown discussion on elements of public involvement and transparency. So open to ideas.
Since it's my green square, I will say I'm fully in support of moving down to the combined work session.
Okay.
But I would like to say that the reason that they are on different squares is because I see transparency work as facilitating the flow of information from the district to the public. And I see the public involvement square as facilitating the flow of information from to the district.
Interesting. it goes both ways. I think communication is, I would actually call transparency communication. I mean, I just think we're parsing things right now, but, so I just see it as the same thing. I mean, that's how I see it. If I see public involvement, transparency, and communication, I see that all in the same, like, circle, so. And I like the idea of having a work session about it, because I like the idea of having an hour or more to just talk about it, instead of having like a goal. I think that's interesting, it's intriguing to me,
And I would
so.
say because it's already a district goal,
Yeah,
I'm comfortable not having it be a board goal.
yeah,
District goals are, at some level, our goals too, right?
Yeah.
So I'm happy moving it down, but it's just something I want to be visible, right? And not just in a check the box, what we're doing in transparency, but something that we're continuing to talk about and think about.
Mhm.
That it is part of our decision. So I'm fine, since I have a sticky unit too, I'm fine with that moving to a different location.
So what if we're clustering these under communications and so that becomes its own little, thank you for being the tea master. So we have this bundle down here. And I think we could talk about the tools for public involvement, as well as how we put our transparency statement into action. We talk about communications going in both ways in this kind of bucket together. Feel good? We'll get into some of the more substantive work sessions here. Local government relationships, might put it here, I put it as a joint work session here. I'm not saying, it's not to say it will stay on the list, but are we feeling that more as a board goal? Are we feeling that as a work session discussion? There is part of me that wonders if we fit under advocacy, the idea of advocacy at all levels.
I like the idea of local advocacy.
Legislative and local. But I do think that we probably need, this is me talking about facilitator. I do think we need to do something with
I agree.
the two groups.
I think whether it's, for me, anyway, whether it's a board goal or not, depends on like how we choose to address it. If it's something we're just kind of like always thinking about, then it's not really the part of board goal. If we're like, by the end of the year, we're gonna establish regular ad hoc meetings with the following entities, and that's like a goal. But, you know, it might also be as simple as like, let's just keep that in the back of our mind. I do definitely want to do the joint things with the cities though.
I would like joint work sessions with both cities.
But that's what we're being discussing. What felt like action steps this year.
Yes,
right?
yes. For advocacy, at least for me, I feel like we need like an advocacy plan, at least at the state level. I think we're gonna be up against some two big elephants, healthcare and transportation, like when it comes to funding, and I'm just really worried about where education will be, because I feel like both sides of the aisle are vilifying public education right now, and so I just think it's really important, and how we do that, like Kelly mentioned, like inviting representatives and senators to schools, like that could be a part of that plan, so, yeah.
Let's talk urban collaborative, because we have
Yeah.
urban collaborative here, we have understanding multi-tier support around safety and classroom behavior, supporting the implementation of the UC report. These two are up in the goal area. this is down in work session, like, let's stay in the loop about it, so how are we feeling there?
Some in the superintendent report too, maybe with that behaviors
Oh.
plans part of it.
Yes, yeah, okay.
Could I just, I know everybody's working around semantics, and I think as you kind of work on this, request I might ask is, when we isolate one part and say, let's have an urban collaborative goal, that's actually it's a group. They came in, they did so I think just finding another phrase to describe what is it that we need, because they're just the name of a organization.
Sure.
What they were doing was giving us a review of our practices and procedures. And so I think finding a way to read that's what the things that are on the backside of it, continue that goal.
Okay.
So using some broader language than some discrete ones around.
I definitely agree with that. On the other side, I did choose to reframe the inclusive, studying the inclusive practices. And so the continuation of that goal and the reframing of that, I think applies to all those aspects, the behavioral, plan. Yeah,
And maybe instead of inclusive practices, could we call it multi-tiered systems of support? Yeah, which include, because that's really all, some, and few, kind of shifting to that language.
Look at, I even did it on multiple tiers.
Oh.
I wonder, I think this one. Yep, and then I do wonder, might this be a fireside chat? Maybe get some backstory on that?
What's that?
Maybe do you need some backstory on
I think I have had a fireside chat on it before.
that? Did you?
What is it? I don't know what you're.
The special ed advisory committee?
If it's advisory to the board, it requires public meetings and it's all staff thing around it.
And I added that too on the inclusion, I don't know where we're in that, but having an advisory committee of the community stakeholders in our inclusion.
Okay.
Insurance inclusion. Could that go under them in CSS or no?
So-
So I think if it's special education, I would not put tag behavior in there, because that's assuming
Yes,
something
exactly.
different. We do have a special education advisory that meets once a month. It's not a board-appointed committee. If you are going to select a board-appointed committee, that now becomes a public meeting. Information that's shared is public. And it's like long-range planning committee. And there will be, public can attend, it will be recorded. And it does change the nature of what people are willing to share or what can be talked about. So just to let you know, that's what happened to the equity committee, is then it came off of being a board appointed committee to being something where it's a little different. I'm not advocating one way or the other, I just want to get some definitions in here.
Initials.
Could you please?
Use a different color.
It's hard to see that.
It's really hard to see.
I'm like right next to it.
My eyes. It's making me doubt my ability to see, basically. I know.
They work for Pictionary, but the sun has changed.
Yes, yes. So my eyes have gotten worse over that.
But I think where I'm coming from with the advisory committee is just with the report coming out from Urban Collaborative, it would be, the timing would be an opportunity to involve the parent stakeholders. And then they could also act as a sounding board, getting the message out to the community. And also their lived experience supporting teachers' recommendations and how it's going to be implemented.
Just for background, I know that the Student Services Department has already planned for the first parent collaboration group of the year. Will be totally focused on unpacking the urban collaborative report, sharing that with all interested parents, getting their ideas, laying out the potential plans. That's been already planned for that existing group, which is any parent can come anytime to be part of that.
There also has been out of that, some parents, you know, wanting to localize and have the same kind of experience, but at their schools. I literally kind of started an offshoot. So I'm wondering about utilizing existing and then just saying, here's one where you can meet at the district, come when, you know, come one, come all. It doesn't feel exclusionary, and then each school could perhaps have as a part of their PTA or some kind of experience as well, because I know that some did not like the district kind of version and wanted one at their school. So some parents kind of something answer on that.
Can I just ask a question? What about for
I think that's the challenge. And right now, the special education parent meetup, like, I don't see a lot of those families engaging in the same way if it's a public meeting. So, and that's my main concern.
I think they're different tools though. I think there's also a lot of parents who aren't engaging because looking for avenues to their elected officials where they can say, I've got a generalized concern about how the district handles a particular element of special ed. And frankly, if they email me, I don't know enough about the nuances of that to draw an opinion just in one email. But I would love to be able to say, hey, why don't you talk to the special advisory board about that? I would love to watch that and see what they have to say about that, because it's a group of people that are knowledgeable on it.
Isn't that what we have staff for?
I do love and trust the staff. I do not want to see us replace the staff by any stretch of the imagination. But to the degree that I have to tell a constituent, you know what, you know the staff and they'll get back to me with something, I think is maybe not the service level that some of our constituents are expecting.
I'm wondering if the board has been adequately informed of some of the other resources, such as FACT Oregon, which is the federally funded mandated Oregon PTI, so the parent training that is free services for any parent that may have questions or concern or want advocacy support in their local districts. I know that Lauren and the team hosted FACT to give informational sessions and answer questions, but it's a full-time organization that is always available to help support constituents that may have those kinds of questions.
I know former chair, so vice chair, went to a parent collaboration.
Many.
And have you been?
No,
Have any of the board members been to my house?
I've been to board member and the parent.
I'm wondering if, that's all. I mean,
That would be
I would hope a
interesting.
board member would attend that structure.
I would
to see
like
what
to
it-
attend. I also am concerned about the application process to be in a special ed committee. Like, let's say it's like, so special ed committee, long range planning committee, you have to apply, you have to be voted on by us. And I'm worried about like representation. This is just, well, of course, this is just me talking, but like, will we get the diversity of parents and caregivers we hope to get if there is a formal application process and an interview process live and in a meeting? Just something to think about. If think about your goal and then think about who you hope to be on your committee. And I'm willing to like explore what we already have. But I'm worried about like who will apply, and then like, is it gonna be the diversity of like all those special education categories we learned about today, will they be represented on that committee? So that's just what I'm thinking. Yeah. so.
I think we're having a work session on this right now. I would love to chat about it, because that's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
And it's a question I hadn't considered, and I would love to give some consideration to that, but I also want to do it as possible today.
So I wonder if,
Anyway, that's why I wrote it down.
because my guess is, I think this is emerging. We have 4 colors here. I would guess that a component of a goal is a work session. So just because something doesn't live down here doesn't mean we will not have work sessions on it. It just means that these are things that we will only have work sessions on. So maybe I'll just put a little asterisk here, and Kelly and Dan can finagle language on the goal that implies that public conversations about this will be had. And I mean, I'll just say, I've met with some parents who do not support the existing resources because they want a pound of flesh, and they want to tell everybody, they want to tell everyone what to do. And in my mind, that's not a reason to create an advisory board. That is an opportunity for us to encourage them to participate in a system that's really healthy for 95% of participants. So I could be convinced, but I think for the reasons that Director Vidal points out, and then honestly, like just from my own experiences, I don't want to talk about my child's disability in a public meeting, so.
Yeah, and I just want to point out, like, one of those categories was like emotional dysregulation, and I feel like a lot of the complaints we receive are about kiddos who have behavioral dysregulation issues, but we never hear from the parents of the children that are going through emotional distress, what it's like for them as a parent of that child that is being complained about, you know? And so I am just hoping we can remember that significant group when we looked at the data today, and like what they need, and also like how they're being kind of vilified. So I'm just really concerned about that.
So I'm gonna keep, we're gonna indicate work sessions are part of our multi-tier systems of support for public conversations. I'm gonna keep under fireside chat for, well, I mean, it could be for anyone, but just identifying who flagged it, for Mike and Kelly to be able to speak more with staff about the pros and cons of an advisory committee, but then also to look at our current offerings. Are we good with that over here?
I'm good with it. I don't even think I need it on the board, because if I have questions, I can hold them. But Dr. Spencer, you mentioned what was it, Fact 5 or?
Fact Oregon,
Fact Oregon.
FACT, F-A-C-T.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ed tech and AI, we have it straddling here. Are we at a point where we're ready to make it a board goal? Do we want to have some learnings about it? Do we want our board goal to include learnings, the potential for policy? What are we thinking? We have three folks, well, 4. But what are we thinking here?
Well, I was certainly thinking about a goal. I'm just not sure what action steps. It seems to me, for me, this is more about learning what we are doing. I was pleased to hear Dr. Lundwing in June address a little bit of our thinking and a kind of commitment to instructional practice. And that's kind of centering us as we think about this. But I'd like to know more about how we're using ed tech. It gets tricky because like ed tech in some people's mind, I think means technology that teaches, as opposed to other uses of technology at school.
parents there. Yeah.
Yeah, right, so there's just a lot
Yeah.
there to unpack, and I think, I'd be okay with it being a board goal that includes the action steps being work sessions. Where we learn more.
I'm gonna agree and hopefully I can piggyback my little green square onto that cluster. Because I think student data protection is probably.
Yeah.
You know, I'm doing work around public policy on AI at this point in time. There's a certain haste to it because I think people recognize that if you try to write policies after something has been entrenched and adopted, it's much harder. And like the fact that for every law federally, there's like a separate, more amazing version for the railroad industry because they, existed before most of the laws were written. And I don't want to get to the point where we wait until AI and tech are just so integrated that the policy is whatever those third-party providers say. Even if we don't know exactly what that looks like, I do think it makes sense to just to make a metaphor, if the board rules or board policies on something are like a subdivision, even if we don't know exactly what the house is gonna look like, I think we can like clear a lot of more foundation.
I also think it's responsive to the moment to have it be a goal. So I love having it up here. And I think that being proactive and being on top of it, both from like a practical standpoint, but then also a policy standpoint, makes me more comfortable up here.
And I think you're on OSBA leadership, so we're hearing all, coming up with a policy suggestion. We do have current policies around technology usage. So I think an outcome of, what does it mean to have it go from an action and a goal versus just a learning? We could be coming to you next year very much with looking at our current policies and seeing if it speaks enough to it, and where to amend a current policy that maybe addresses it based on OSBA recommendations. So I don't know if you're hearing anything more about that.
No, I can tell you from the last legislative update, it was not a significant item on this list. That being said, we have a lot of work to do on budgetary issues. So that's going to push a lot, and plus the legislature has been reticent in the last couple of sessions to step into the AI space. And I personally disagree with that decision, but obviously it's a lot harder to wrangle 90 people to a particular direction than it is to wrangle 5 people, so.
And I think AI here, but ed tech here, because it is conversation. We're starting to get some requests from parents around, please off my child out of anything ed tech. And then we say, what do you mean by ed tech?
Right, we can't leave parents to learn.
And we can't, so I think if we can kind of work around describing and having it somewhere, then we can say,
That's actually one of the foundational things that we've been doing to move the ball at the state level is helping to define terms, because people don't have a standard glossary that everyone's working off of.
Yes.
So we've been like, okay, this is what this means, this is what dynamic action means, this is what surveillance action means. And it's really tough to get people to understand exactly what they're asking for.
Yes. I think that's where I am with the word transparency. Like what, anyways,
Okay, so let's, we're gonna keep this up here. I think we have a lot of agreement here around this idea of like, advocacy, like developing and deploying and participating in an advocacy plan. And then a huge part of that obviously is funding. Are we comfortable with having this be kind of broad right now and then having the chair and vice chair work with staff to put it into goal language that's accomplishable in the next year for us. You okay with that? You guys okay? Ready for that? Okay.
But Vice Chair Vidal,
I'm not.
would you be okay? Oh, yeah.
She is.
No.
I said not it, that's what I said.
Could we move absenteeism into MTSS? Because when I go
Oh,
to sit, every
yes,
student,
that's
every
good.
class, every
Love.
day, and we're talking about
Especially
systems of
music gaps,
support.
right,
I think
yeah.
let's be a little broader.
That's good.
Yes, inclusionary practices
Yes.
is part of that, but we're not waiting for students to get an identification or to
Yeah.
have a challenge, it's about.
No, that's great, that's fine with me.
Okay, so. And then the one thing, I know this week we'll call out like budget monitoring.
I think they're the right words.
No, but I
Yeah.
think this, like, say it loud and say it often, like,
Yeah.
every single meeting, we're gonna hear it from the superintendent. I mean, this isn't the time for us to like plan our board reports, but I think we need to also remember that that is a time for us to repeat things that we want to emphasize. And I think you guys did a really good job of that with your legislative advocacy, when you guys were really in the thick of it. And so I wonder if things like budget monitoring from a advocacy level, it's not just superintendent report talking about the actual budget or or Dr. Hughes' report, but it's all of us continuing to hammer on this stuff that we want people to know. So I'll just put that out there too. Okay, so how are we feeling about 3 board goals? State and local advocacy, multi-tiered systems of support, AI and tech. Work sessions with our local governments. Definitely cities, I don't know if we want to do county, but, then there, we can't forget Metro, the most important level of all.
That goes with that.
Do you pay her in unmarked bills? Just kidding.
I just want Christine to,
We can forget about it.
yeah, no.
For the record.
Does that one go with that now?
Yeah. So then work session with local gov, work session on communications and engagement.
Yeah.
Fireside chats always can be added to, but we're feeling good about covering that. And then maybe we have like 3.5 goals, 3.25 goals. This is the positions.
Policy BBB. Board representation.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know, maybe the board leadership can figure out how to run it.
What's the one on the top right?
This is inclusion model.
I don't think I'm just gonna throw it out there, if we are close, which I believe we are, to policy BBB, I don't think there's anything wrong with having it as a goal and completing it soon. I like the idea of checking something off soon. I'm like,
We got 4
what's wrong with that? Like, yeah.
So that's 5 solid board goals, right?
1, 2, 3.
Oh, is the first one,
I don't think there's.
This is all kind of,
that's all, all right.
this is that second half of the budget process with budget community engagement, like keeping budget and legislative,
Budget and
Top,
advocacy
yeah.
together.
Yeah.
and then inclusion, multi-tier systems of support, AI tech is new, and then this is the equivalent of putting something on your to-do list that you've
Yes.
already done to check off.
Make 2 do this.
What's wrong with that?
I know.
And I think Director Salvaggio's, if it doesn't feel ready, don't rush it. It's a big decision, and if it takes a little more time, then it
Then
doesn't
it
feel like
takes a little more
it
time,
takes
yes.
more time.
Chris, can I say something about that board goal 1 there? I just want to, there's an aspect of that I don't think shows up in the things we've written there, but it's sort of a recognition of our advisory role to the superintendent. And what I mean by that is, sometimes it can feel like we withdraw and the superintendent goes into the mines, the coal mines, and is grinding away for months at a time.
And then at some point, you know, when
Yeah.
she's got that, she comes up and says essentially, here's what we need to do.
Yeah,
That doesn't feel like we've had an advisory role there. It feels more like the superintendent's been writing away and says,
yeah.
right? At the same time, I don't want to overstep and suggest that I want to write a budget.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
saying I don't want to do that, right?
Yeah,
And I think our superintendent and her folks who work on this do an amazing job.
yeah,
But at the same time, I want to recognize that we have a serious advisory role. And so sometimes when I say I'd like to start early, I mean more in the sense of priorities. I understand that when we do surveys, we get feedback, but the board is also feedback, right?
yeah.
So I just want to say that I want to somehow incorporate that.
I just want to say, I think Dan's correct in that word early, because that's what I mean, too.
And I'll just say, you know, the grinding away, a lot of that is just, there's the paying of the bills. This is how many, the people, the water bill, the electricity, bills comes right off the top, you know, and so that's, it's not as exciting budget process
Yeah.
because 90% of it is, this just is keeping the lights going, it's functioning. And you made some big moves this year as a board that only a board can do, which is around right-sizing the size of the district that's decreasing around consolidating two schools, that only a board can do that kind of work too. Understanding what's happening with the budget and that to keep the lights on and to let these programs going. But certainly, you know, as I think you mentioned it, when you get into the fourth year of budget reductions, then the fifth year, and then the sixth year, now we're getting into, is the landscape of the district gonna have to change?
Yes.
Can't close any more schools. So, you know, what is that process?
So what are you prioritizing?
Yeah.
And I will say, as I love surveys, they also get filled out with the knowledge of what people know at the time, you know. And so sometimes people fill out a survey, know how public school funding works, and sometimes they don't. And so I think just how to survey too is important in not just identifying priorities, but then getting at the complexities of ways that we need to understand programs and how they get funded.
Well, I would just like to say
Yeah.
that despite there not being like a formal, you know, weighing in of like, every number should not be 12, I think it should be 13, whatever. I feel that the values that we've talked about, I feel like the values we've talked about and the ones that I've expressed feel very heard in the budget as a values document. So I appreciate that.
Okay, so I'm gonna rush us along.
Yeah.
Dan and Kelly, do you feel like you could take some pictures and work with staff to turn these into some goals?
Yes.
And then staff, do you feel like you have what you need to start thinking through some work sessions and some structured a superintendent's report and then some fireside chat line? Okay.
Yeah.
Are
I mind
we,
if I stand there while you're talking? Because
yes, that's fine.
I'm just afraid something will fall, I don't know where.
Oh, okay. So, and we have a hard stop at 3:30, is that right?
May I just need to say something?
Yes.
So I have to pick up my oldest child in here presumptive at Palmsy.
Oh.
Okay.
And initially, Google was like that 23 minutes away. And I'm watching it, like, I'm watching, now it's 41 minutes away.
Okay.
So,
Let's try to get, we have 20 minutes until 3:15. How about 3:15?
I'm sorry if I didn't pick up earlier, so sorry.
No, it's okay.
okay.
So I want us to do this kind of like quick exercise and then we move around the room. So we have a, there's a Likert scale of strongly agree and then strongly disagree on this side. And if you're kind of like, you kind of stand in the middle, okay? But you're gonna move with your body to some statements that I'm gonna make regarding transparency, okay?
Oh.
Okay, so I'm gonna read out, and then I'm gonna stand too, just because I want to be part of it, I don't want to be left out. Okay, so ready? First statement. A transparent process can still leave people disappointed.
That's what I mean, all.
It's like, what is it, ship to shore, wasn't that a game? More information does not always create more transparency.
No.
Okay, maybe read it again to get some knots.
Okay. More information does not always create more transparency. If people don't understand our reasoning, we haven't been fully transparent. We've had the most disparate places, so does anyone want to share why they picked where they are on the scale?
I'll share why I disagree with that statement, and it is because for me, like I said, transparency is about communication from the district to the public. And be recorded, so I want to be very careful with my words here. Not everyone can take the same information and turn that into understanding the way that some people can. Some people, despite having facts at their disposal, may choose to not figure it out. And that's about as diplomatic as I'll be.
Can you read it one more time?
If people don't understand our reasoning, we haven't been fully transparent.
I think if we don't give our reasoning, then we haven't been fully transparent. But having said that, I don't think you can hand somebody your reasoning. Or you certainly can't hand them your understanding. Right. So you can give them your reasoning, but that doesn't guarantee they have your understanding.
If people don't understand our reasoning, we haven't been fully transparent.
So if you had said you don't have our reasoning, I'd be over there.
Yes.
And I just feel that some people are looking for something else than what we're offering. Like, you know, if we give them the answers, it's like, those weren't the answers that they were looking for. Could be, because my kids are famous for, like, derailing me with this. So, and it's just looking with a different lens, a broad lens, and listening and not just wanting this expectation to come out.
Where are you staying?
I like kind of in the middle because of the distinction of understand. Because we can't make anyone understand because of either cognitive reasons or just deep held beliefs where they're never going to believe what we say. But I do believe that sharing our reasoning is important as a step toward transparency, because then if someone does have the cognitive ability to understand the information and is on the fence, they at least understand where it's key.
And I just want to add that I think we should strive to communicate better. So people can have a better understanding. I'm going to use a war metaphor. I might not have agreed with President Bush that we should have gone into the Gulf War, but I understand why he put us there. So that is what I'm like. So yes, not everybody will cognitively be able to understand, but I think we should strive to provide tight key messages that are easy to understand as to why we do things. So, yeah.
Okay, next one. Transparency is measured by understanding, not by the volume of information released. Transparency is measured by understanding, not the volume of information released.
2/3 of the time.
Yeah.
2/3 of the way.
I would say yes.
So is that volume matters in showing goodwill toward transparency? Is that maybe why you're not fully there, but you're not over there. So what are you thinking?
I think volume can sometimes help with understanding, right? Can help people get there. So I think that, but understanding is a tricky thing. I mean, it's not just cognitive, it's your experience in life. I mean, there's just a lot of parts of that. So getting someone to understand, I think volume is an important aspect to it.
And I think sometimes less is more, where if you're being bombarded with a lot of massive information, it can be overwhelming and you're not able to understand.
I know of a state agency that when they want to explore something, will release it in a 600-page document with a lot of other things around it. You can, and if you can do it deliberately, then you can serve it the next level.
Yes, I agree with that. I think quality is better.
Yes.
Quality of information, and to my point before, like the tightness and the preciseness of a message. Yeah.
The organization.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. The board's responsibility is to communicate clearly, not to eliminate disagreement. A transparent board explains both what it knows and what it doesn't know.
Hmm. How dare you?
Trust grows more from consistency and honesty than from releasing more documents.
No one understands it, most of all, don't want to touch it.
Okay. Okay, those are all of the Likert scale items that I have
Okay.
to get us thinking, okay?
Okay.
Any that you all want to throw out top of mind that you've been weighing or you've been thinking we might have different perspectives on?
I would like something in their process. Yeah, like how a decision is made, knowing how a decision is made. I don't know, I just kind of ruminating. I think we get questions about process a lot.
Let's ruminate in this draft document.
Oh my God.
I do have one of those. I would say, in my mind, touching the wall, that transparency is not just about the amount of type of information that's released, but also in its usability and its utility to. Because like I said, there's like there's a anchor box full of carbon paper, which may have some very good information on it. And the example that I use all the time is the legislature's information system, which has gigabytes of information that can very, very easily be extraordinarily confusing, but because of how they organize it and because of how they've put it on the no data feed, anyone can take it and sort through it. So,
Okay, so I put draft on here, the biggest font I could, because I don't want anyone to think that this is fully baked. But I also know that sometimes it's easier to edit things rather than to take pen to like sheet of paper. So, so here's what I'm thinking. And I know we're gonna do a work session and we're gonna keep talking about this, but what might it look like if we had a transparency commitment that we shared on a slide or in the boardroom? And could we get to a place where we could make a statement and then explain what transparency means to us? So this takes some of the examples, some of the scale items and puts them into like transparency means statements. We weren't, 100% uniform, but we were close on a lot of our like where we agree and disagree on transparency items. But that's the thinking. And does this help us tell that story to our community members and to also share what this means to us and how we're going to uphold this? So the commitment statement is, we will strive to ensure that a reasonable community member can understand how a decision was reached, even if they disagree with the outcome. And then the different transparency definitions, I won't read them out loud because you can all read, but it's really about making our work understandable, communicating, providing context, talking about process, not just the end decision, recognizing that confidentiality is still part of our jobs, with, any student data, with personnel information, with our executive session privileges. And then the concept of consistency. So we don't just say we're transparent one day and then not do it the next.
What I like about this is that it's got, it reminds me of the board expectations document, because it involves responsibilities of us, but also involves some responsibilities of the public.
Mhm.
So I would almost say, why don't we split this and say, here's what we expect of the public, here's what the public expects of us. Because I think if you're a reasonable member of the public, you have to acknowledge that you're going to seek to understand first before sending a lack of transparency. I can tell you that I have at one point tried to explain to someone there's like the document that they wanted, that like that doesn't exist and don't keep that. What was the document? Was it just a statistic? And then be clear about the ones confidentiality, just like you said. But it's a two-way street. So that's what I like.
From a PR perspective, I would actually take out the word reasonable. I feel like it's loaded. I feel like that some of the people that are very mad at us will feel like we're judging them and calling them unreasonable, which I'm not trying to do. So I would like to take that out. I also,
And that was not my intention by any means.
oh no, I know,
It was
but I
more
mean,
of like,
yeah.
if someone from, San Luis Obispo contacts us about something,
Oh.
that's not like the most reasonable request.
My feeling is just,
No, but I
is
get
that
Yeah,
right
I
now.
get it, okay.
And then I actually, I disagree with like having this as a two-way street. Like I feel like, in order to improve our trustworthiness and just show that we're doing the work, I feel like we should take out 3. I feel like seeking first to understand before assuming a lack of transparency. I just think that's saying like we are saying that you think that we're not being transparent, but we are. I mean, that's just where I don't know if that makes sense, but I just feel, that's where I'm coming from. I don't know how strongly I feel about this. Like, I don't know if I'm willing to like argue a lot about it, but that's just my gut from like a public, like wanting to do better. I feel like we need to first do better, and then maybe then we can ask them to do better. I don't know. I don't think that I have not lost trust in the public, and so I'm willing to improve for them. That's just where I'm coming from.
And I think the reason I added it wasn't even thinking that was about the public as much as like, it's kind of like remembering that we all still have a lot to learn.
Okay.
And even
Oh,
staff,
okay.
like, it's more that like, before, when someone, if someone's yelling about a lack of transparency as it relates to, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it's up to us to seek first to understand. That's kind of like that, like, golden rule of, highly effective leadership.
Yes.
And so I think I was looking at it more of it is about us, but I think
Yeah.
Mike's point, which I do like the idea that like transparency is about open communication
And,
both ways.
yeah, and the, people have to be clear about what they're asking for.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I've had emails from constituents, you probably have too, that are like, well, I just need to get an understanding of everything or whatever. And, this is, if it's only addressed to me, I'll respond feeling, be more specific.
Mhm.
Like, I will help you access the records you're looking for, but if you're not asking for anything other than satisfaction, I don't know how to get that to you. I don't know how to help you. And especially given that we deal with student information, the limits of transparency, I think, can't be. I think Director Joel, former vice chair, makes a very good point in terms of we don't want this to come off as we'll be transparent, but you guys have to do something for us.
That's what I'm worried about.
I get that.
But statements like seek to understand,
That's fine.
suspend disbelief, like, those are very common ways to think about. I mean, just sort of guiding principles in the way that groups work. I think something like, I mean, even if we just stopped it and said, seek first, understand. Maybe
Yes.
that seems trite, I don't know, but.
I mean, I feel like I say that at least weekly to my children. Like, I mean, because I think it's just great advice, you know, and so, I mean, less words, great, but I like it. I think curiosity is something that we need to encourage.
Yeah, I like that too. Yeah.
Curiosity.
Yes.
And that's what
That was one of
we tell
the
our
tentacles.
That's why there's 8 of them.
Oh.
That was the one
And
of
there's
those.
thousands of those suction cups
Yeah.
because you're really wanting to.
It's not gallons.
Okay, be curious, like,
Yeah, and how many are on all those emails?
Well, okay, so, I wonder if, because it's so fun to just have board leadership do stuff.
I know, we would like you.
As part of drafting the goals, would you like to, I mean, I don't think we've had a ton of edits, but as folks
Yeah.
think of other edits, would you guys like to bring forward something like this?
absolutely.
And then it would be something that we would, so you guys can go and do the rest of the work.
I know. I don't know why that makes me so happy.
Show you the process.
Yes, yes.
So-
That's the perfect cutest to know.
I think an exercise that would be helpful for me. because
Okay.
It becomes, you've made this, now you go.
Yeah, you have to implement it.
Superintendent district and Andrew.
That's important.
communication, please do. And we're in this idea, well, even 5 people couldn't agree, you know.
Yes,
at the time,
exactly.
And you're in the work so deeply. An exercise would be good for me that I'd love to do with the chair and vice chair is take a topic and just walk through, where did you hear from the community that there wasn't transparency?
Yeah.
Is it because something wasn't on the website? Is it because we didn't say it in a meeting? Is it because it went too fast? You know, I think that would help me to understand where those tension points are, because there are things that are just outside of our control. One, you can't have conversations unless you're all 5 together. You meet once a month. You don't meet every day. You know, there are just things around when we get information from the state, when budget things arrive, when they get delivered and then taken away, or grants, you know, statutes that change, or that statutes that guide us, not just policy. So I think a healthy exercise we to test this would be, let's take a few different things where we heard the most about it and say, using this as kind of a guidance, does it help? So that it feels practical too, because if you're gonna expect now the district to live into this and not just the board, I would need that clarity as well.
But I would also encourage you, and especially if it makes it an easier process as we all run into this, is that if this, for me as a school board member, this is what I'm thinking about, the way that I communicate as a board member, and the way that I share with a community member what transparency means to us. I'm not saying that you and Andrew need to have a checklist and you need to check on every single one of you on everything you communicate. I think it's great if we were in agreement, but I also don't think it's bad if this is a school board commitment. And because your jobs are so complex with all of the ways that you have to communicate. So I don't know how people feel about that.
So-
Yeah.
So something that sounds more like guiding principle for the school.
Yeah.
For the
Yes.
school board.
Yes.
And I think it's great if you want to be like, oh, let's make sure that we're always providing context, not just documents. But like, there are some things where like, that doesn't make necessarily sense.
So it's
I just
sorry,
think it's,
but I have
Of
an
course,
obvious-
yes.
Thank you, Mike.
I just think it's a
Yes,
bit too challenging to have that be something that you do and it not apply to us. Because at some point, your work is a reflection of what.
And you already have a district transparency role.
Yeah.
I think that oftentimes when we hear lack of transparency, it is a combination of lack of understanding and frankly, outcomes that aren't enjoyed. Right? And so language is thrown around about, well, you're not transparent. And I think it's fair for us to look at that and say, okay, did we try to communicate clearly? Did we communicate our process? And so in the sense that it would be guiding for us, I think it could be.
And then let's do the, I'd like
Yeah.
really to do that
Yes.
exercise. It'd be helpful for me.
Yeah.
And maybe that's.
I'm excited about this and I
Yeah.
think if we can land on something, the idea of having it on the slide or the board or somewhere would be really helpful.
And maybe an exercise, depending on how it goes for you guys, maybe that is the foundation of our work session to get started on this, is to be, is to look at something and be able
Yes.
to talk through it as a group. And be like, look, you know, an after action, after on it.
It works well.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you. Sharon, do you
Yeah.
have some moments?
I do, yes, and I told
Okay,
you
sorry.
I would sign something.
Okay.
You did great.
As soon as we adjourn.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
We adjourn.
We are here.
Yay.
Thank you.
Yay.